Dear Chairman Dr. Anna Grunwald, Presidency, dear President Parliament Europa Hungary, Dr. Gabor Andrássy, dear Gabi, President Alain Ternoir, President or representatives of Austrian, German, Slovakian, Austrian, Slovenian, Slovakian delegations, here Croatia, 6-7 countries. Great thanks for invitation and all congratulations to you as Hungary, Hungarian state, Hungary people, for all jubilees, and also with wonderful support of leadership of the mission of our famous Konrad Adenauer Stiftung here. So thanks for invitation to be here on behalf of Serbian people, Serbian state, Serbian Pan-Europa, and after my discussions yesterday with the special advisor, former Minister of Foreign Affairs to the President of the Republic, Ivan Mrkic, also best wishes. So, Lars reminded me that it's very important to have some roots. My old family, from grandfathers, mothers, being teachers in multinational Vojvodina, surrounded many families, majority in that part from Hungarian population. And part of my personal education civilization coming from that period, from my early childhood. So I'm happy to tell you, dear all Pan-European friends, that, dear ladies and gentlemen, here we have one very important, exciting recognition of this part of European and world history from very deep Hungarian history as a part also for early United Europe, Austro-Hungarian period, and before that as a part of protection against the Ottomans, occupations and empires. We remember that many civilization aspects came from Budapest for us, and we are forever very thankful to this country, to these people, to history. So that's important because we have here from early 1848 years to 1956 years, very important experience of Hungarian history. So what to tell, where is European challenge and the picnic jubilee? How to find that? Before I arrived at our gathering here, some benevolent people indicated to me that it would not be too rewarding on this particular day to talk about the picnic jubilee and European prospects. According to them, the 1989 picnic was a signal of the creation of Europe as a beloved home of all the people living in it. In contrast, tomorrow, already on Sunday, just before midnight, the elections for the European Parliament will end, and in these elections, according to many forecasts, the very forces that seek to break the existing European bloc will be maybe strengthened the most. How can we talk about the ideals of picnic before the end of elections that are characterized by the strengthening of the opposite ideals? Let me suggest a simple answer to this seemingly complex question. The growing internal European controversies should, like everything else, be discussed calmly and rationally, just like we discuss social processes which are dynamical reality, societal goals are more important than any social turmoil. A united, strong, human, and righteous Europe has been from century to century minded the goal of hundreds of millions of residents of our continent. And this ideal has not yet been seriously challenged. Controversial issues were the possible paths and more or less acceptable pragmatic moves and ideas on how to reach this goal. Europe now how to absorb such diversity and to turn it into a quality that would be helpful in overcoming each of the previous crises from which it came out stronger. The picnic is an example that confirms this rule. At the moment when the legendary wooden gate of the barbed with wire fence near Sopron was opened, a half a century long dream of the people on the other side of the Iron Curtain started to become a reality. Helmut Kohl was absolutely right when he said that the picnic that was then held on the Austrian soil knocked the first brick from the infamous Berlin Wall. The East embraced Europe as its decades-long ideal. In the real world, the idealized Europe was at that moment actually a well-known old lady tormented by her own internal crisis. The European community was built on loose foundations, which in the following decades caused many of its problems. Let us remember, for example, the failed European Defense Community project from 1952. At that time, a treaty was signed on the establishment of the Pan-European Defense Force as an alternative to the access of the West Germany to NATO. France refused to ratify the treaty, and this triggered a crisis that only in 1970 led to the institution of the European Political Cooperation as the predecessor of the common foreign and security policy. Although Europe optimists suffered a heavy blow with the rejection of the European defense community, in that same decade, the Treaty of Rome was adopted, which paved that way for stronger bonding of the European states. The following decade, the treaty establishing the European Economic Community as a supranational entity was signed, and then the European Court of Justice recognized the principle of supranationality as the key feature of European unification. It was with full justification that a well-known Serbian analyst, Vladimir Pavićević, highlighted three other major crises which seriously shocked Europe in the first decades. The first was empty chair crisis that broke out on the middle 60s because de Gaulle withdrew the French representative to the Brussels. France was unhappy because of agricultural policy at that time. However, 6 months later, an agreement was reached as a membership in the European community suited the French farmers. The crises were pregnant with many hazards for the European unity, but Europe came out of it by the strengthening the ties between its members. The second crisis was emergence of the so-called euro clauses from the 70s, mid-80s. We remember that all of these shocks, oil shocks, monetary shocks and problems, I'll not elaborate long. What followed was the famous crisis concerning the Britain's budget issue and the Margaret Thatcher period when Jacques Chirac told no any more membership from UK. All of these are many other small European crises are characterized by the fact that whatever they were like, the European countries emerged from them with a higher degree of integration. Disagreements and controversies lead to problem to resolution, which was a turn but healthy road for Europe. All of that was beyond the horizon of thousands of ordinary people from Hungary, Austria, East Germany, who organized picnic near Sopron on 19 August 1989. The face of Europe, which they could see, was the bright and shine, with no sears. What they brought to the picnic was a great idea, which finally started to become reality for them too. And Europe continued to grow, and in that real process to face new challenges. Today, the Eurozone crisis is most pronounced, but it's certainly not the only one. The election result that we will maybe expect tomorrow at midnight will largely be determined by the economic problems, Mediterranean states, and several other problems. But the future between social, economic development in Europe will be something other. This is the reality of today's Europe, just like to set big crises were the reality of Europe of yesterday or the day before. That is how Europe is also seen by people of my country, Serbia, which has only started its part towards access to European Union. We did not have a picnic. Our doors to Europe were open. Our doors were opened in a different way, but nevertheless open. Once we pass through them, we expect to find ourselves in Europe that has already passed a new important path in this development. We will probably know by the end of this decade if Europe will become a confederation, how its secure forces will develop anew, the diversity of cultures will be integrated into its territory. And at the end, the only thing I'm sure of today is that Europe will be then have gone through new, better experiences and host of the heated debates, but will even more resemble the beautiful vision that imposed the picnic 25 years ago. And just some notes for closing. We must remember that every historical part in the European actual moment, like Ukraine, maybe one day we'll get a new shape of picnic with a different menu of the picnic on some other borders. The philosophy, what is the conflict in the world between Iron Curtain period, Cold War, East and West option, communism and capitalism is changed today towards the conflicts of different dictatorial intentions. So I can just remind you one message from a very early written book, American Express, from Jean-Jacques Schreiber in 1960s. 43 years ago I was reading that. And the last message, Europe, win, extend, or die. That is the future. We must go in future to become the unity of all positive effects in the future world integrations. Thank you so much for your attention.